It's kind of our founders sort of decided that. Anyway, when we come back, why do more than half of younger Americans think our democracy has failed or is in trouble? Stay with us.
In terms of our concern, we're very concerned, and it's something that we're going to remain focused on going forward.
Throughout this hour, we'll drill down into foreign policy threats in Ukraine and around the world. And to start, let's bring in David Spunt at the White House with the latest on the standoff between the U.S. and Russia. David.
Chris, tensions between Moscow and Kiev go back decades, but things today appear to be coming to a head. Now President Biden is getting personally involved. President Biden looking to press concerns Russia could invade Ukraine. Russia has more than 100,000 troops along the border.
My expectation is we're going to have a long discussion.
Just days ago, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his team discovered a Russian coup plot that would take him out.
What we have to know is that we are in complete control of our borders and fully ready for any escalation.
Some kind of escalation appears imminent. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin saying the U.S. has helped shore up Ukraine.
We have provided them with a number of different things over the years, including lethal capability, a lot of non-lethal capability.
Russia is trying to block Ukraine from joining NATO. Biden and Vladimir Putin met face-to-face at a June summit. Publicly, Putin has and continues to praise Biden, saying recently Biden is a professional who, quote, doesn't miss a thing. But privately, U.S. officials admit flattery only goes so far, and President Biden will tell Putin to back off and recognize Ukrainian sovereignty. The president will also reportedly speak to his Ukrainian counterpart, another.
Well, Chris, we continue to learn a lot about Omicron. We've seen certainly that there has been spread around the world and in our country. This is something we expected. We've seen this with other variants. And we've been in close dialogue with our colleagues in South Africa on a frequent basis to understand what they are seeing. Chris, even though they are certainly seeing cases go up, they have seen an increase in hospitalizations, they have cautioned us, as we have tried to caution others, not to draw immediate conclusions from initial data sets or from anecdotes that you hear. So to the question of whether the increased spread is being driven by greater transmissibility or whether it's being driven by a different sensitivity to our vaccine protections or protection from prior infection, the exact mix there of contributors is not known. The bottom line is, and this is what we do know that the measures that we take to protect ourselves from the spread of COVID, including wearing masks in indoor spaces, being in well-ventilated spaces, those work, will work against Omicron. We also know with vaccines, Chris, that even though we're trying to figure out the exact level of protection our vaccines will give against Omicron, in every case we have seen the
wild is the situation in space?
Well, first of all, let me say that it's an incredibly growing and dynamic domain, and some of that contributes to what you'll call the wildness of space. In the past 2 years alone, the number of active satellites in space has doubled. It's gone to nearly 5,000 things. Now, a lot of energy is in the commercial investment and innovation we see, but there aren't really an agreed-to international set of standards and norms of behavior that are expected in space.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that. If the Space Force is the new sheriff in town, how do you keep law and order in that kind of situation? And what constitutes an act of war in space?
So the answer, let me start there. The answer to what constitutes an act of war in space is not really clear, I'll say clearly defined or understood, and perhaps there's been less thinking in that and then in other areas and other domains. What we are not, though, is we are not the sheriff in town. We are a military force, but we firmly advocate for regulation and conduct and standards of norms of behavior that everybody should follow and that we should follow as well.
And does anyone, the other nations, especially China, especially Russia, do they listen to us in that area?
There are conversations ongoing. They put forward proposals as well, so do we, but things have not proceeded very far in the recent past. We've tried to facilitate it. It's really under the leadership of the Department of State. But recently, the Secretary of Defense outlined what I'll call 5 tenets of responsible behavior that we apply to that everybody else should. Conduct your space operations in a safe manner. Don't generate long-lived with debris, don't create harmful interference, communicate your intentions, and operate safely in the vicinity of others. Those are the kinds of tenets and expertise that we should, or expectations that we should all adhere to, but they aren't commonly accepted or adhered to yet in space.
China.
King of the 798 composite solvent.
Me selling shoes?
I'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning at the store.
Yeah.
And after work, if you're as sensational as I know you can be, we'll go out and celebrate.
Oh.
Just the two of us.
Now you're talking.
Goodbye, my chairman of the board.
Farewell, my queen of hearts. Me selling shoes?
Biggest problem we have is hormones. All them young folks with all those hormones getting pregnant when they shouldn't get pregnant. It's hormones.
Experts say some 24 states are either certain or very likely to make the procedure illegal, and more could do so.
What would happen if the Supreme Court overturned Roe for you?
For us, that would mean that we would be closing within the next 30 days.
With the future of Roe in doubt, the consequences of the 2016 election loom even larger.
We're going to appoint judges who will support, defend, and uphold the Constitution.
Do we want him appointing our judges?
Donald Trump cemented his legacy with 3 new Supreme Court justices. Now, the court's decision will come just months before the midterm elections and could reshape a political environment which now favors Republicans.
The reaction to the overturn will be thermonuclear, and it is the foreseeable event that has the greatest chance of changing the trajectory of the midterms.
You want to see a revolution? Go ahead, outlaw Roe v. Wade.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Of society, no, they are on their own. Their raw political power pushed those new justices onto the court, and this is going to be the outcome. And I would agree with your run-up to this. This is going to be about Americans standing up to assert their rights.
You don't believe if they allow the Mississippi law to stand within the framework of Roe, do you believe that means Roe is still legit? It's still relevant case law at that point?
Technically, yes, but in reality, what we've seen with these states, I mean, in Texas, they've literally.
Why try to do it at the national level? We generally don't do things well here anyway, and on something as contentious as this, it seems like it would make common sense. It'd be practical and not political to send it back to the states and let every state do what they want to do and live with it. And if you don't like it, then go to work within those legislatures. It was never enumerated in the Constitution that this would be something that would be done at the federal level. And it takes the decibel level, the caustic nature of politics, as we see it here in D.C., takes it to another place.
The crazy people. This isn't like he's not serious about this, but he's playing to the crazy.
It's a troll. He's trying to get attention for doing it. I think most responsible gun owners wouldn't want this kind of gun fetish display. Just as most responsible gun owners, I think, would condemn the way that the parents handled the use of the gun and the lack of safekeeping. It sort of violates everything that responsible gun owners believe.
And I think hearing responsible gun owners really pushing back in this moment and rejecting things like the tweet that Thomas Massey posted, which by the way is at 60,000 likes and counting on Twitter. And yes, I know that Twitter is not America. We do know that. We certainly know that.
Imagine if it were.
Absolutely. But no, there is an audience for this, and it just needs to be kind of underscored that for gun owners and for folks that are in gun culture who are like, no, this is not who we are. Hearing some of those voices in this conversation, I think, is going to be important too.
Look, there's another part of this, Ashley. It's what the school did and did not do. And look, I have family that works.
Purchased by James Crumley just last week. It was stored in an unlocked drawer.
Clearly, based on the statements of the shooter at 1:22 p.m., quote, Ethan, don't do it, end quote.
4 students were killed, 7 students and a teacher wounded.
The notion that a parent could read those words and also know that their son had access to a deadly weapon that they gave him is unconscionable, and I think it's criminal. It is criminal.
The parents are scheduled to be arraigned today, but they are not in custody. December is a...
I'm Rafferty. Hop on, we got some serious talking to do.
Dead? What do you mean, dead? Oh.
Mister, you shouldn't be riding a bike. You could really hurt somebody.
Haven't lost anybody yet.